Hello combatants, I'm Andrew, this is Cutscene, and today I'm going to test your might. Hot on the heels of our Silent Hill episode, an ultra-rare example of a good video game adaptation, we're gonna keep things posy with a look at, quite frankly, the greatest.
Mortal Kombat!
Somehow, Paul W.S. Anderson's 1995 film captured the insane premise, over-the-top characters, and bone-crunching brutality of the games, with mid-90s special effects and a PG-13 rating. Hot damn. It's not quite a flawless victory, but Mortal Kombat is still the best video game movie ever. Why? Let's start with the structure. The problem with most game adaptations is that they adapt the lore of a game, but not necessarily the experience of playing the game. The resulting movie might look like the source material, but it doesn't capture what it feels like. Mortal Kombat does. The opening of the film is like the attract screen in an arcade game, giving us a bite-sized glimpse into the combatants' lives before we insert a quarter and press start. We find out about Liu Kang's little brother and his life in the monastery, Sonya's personal vendetta against Kano, and Johnny Cage's never-ending quest for legitimacy. Then boom, we're all on a boat getting exposition from Raiden and setting sail to determine the final fate of Earthrealm.
To enter the realm of Earth, the Emperor's demon sorcerer Shang Tsung and his warriors have to win 10 straight victories in Mortal Kombat. They have won 9.
Once we get to the island proper, the story proceeds exactly like a Mortal Kombat movie should. One-on-one encounters in a tournament setting that usually end with that sweet, sweet fatality.
Fatality.
No complicated inputs required. Have you tried doing a fatality? It takes a lot out of you. I don't like doing it. Just hit them. Compare that to the live-action Street Fighter, which as a game has a pretty similar structure. A martial arts tournament featuring the world's greatest warriors, presided over by a cackling madman who doesn't necessarily play by the rules.
Yes! Yes!
Granted, there's a lot more lore in Mortal Kombat, what with Earthrealm, Outworld, and all the Elder Gods running around, but on the surface, a Street Fighter movie could and should look a lot like Mortal Kombat. Instead, Street Fighter tries to be a live-action G.I. Joe, and the only scene that even remotely resembles a street fight literally comes crashing down when the army bursts through the door.
You're all under arrest.
Mortal Kombat feels like playing a game right down to the endurance round before the final boss fight, but it also feels like the movie that inspired the arcade hit in the first place. Enter the Dragon. Now stop me if you've heard this one before. A Shaolin monk travels to a mysterious island where he battles through a martial arts tournament while working to take down its shady overlord. Ed Boon and John Tobias borrowed heavily from Bruce Lee's masterpiece, and they weren't exactly subtle about it. So when it came time to turn the game into a movie, the film took plenty of cues from the martial arts classic and combined it with the trademark Mortal Kombat style. In any other time, this movie would have been a complete disaster. The thumping techno score, the atrocious CGI, and using audio samples from the game itself.
Get over here!
These are all things that I rightfully crap on later game movies for, many of which were also directed by Anderson. But somehow, for Mortal Kombat, it just works. Don't get me wrong, not everything has aged well, but for every shitty computer animated reptile, there's cool costumes, kick-ass moves, and incredible animatronics like the amazing 120-pound suit used to create Goro. From gorgeous locations like the Buddhist temples of Thailand to the massive sets that made up the desolate realm of Outworld, in reality a huge abandoned steel mill. The movie perfectly captures the exotic atmosphere of the arcade classic. It takes things just seriously enough for you to care about the stakes, but it's still not afraid to crack a joke or two, which fits perfectly with the series' demented sense of humor.
Flawless victory.
And while the PG-13 rating puts a damper on the dismemberment, the characters are so well constructed that you don't even want to see them die, except maybe Johnny Cage. But also, he's kind of cool because he's kind of got this redemption thing going, and whatever. I got a soft spot for Johnny Cage.
Yeah, well, tell that to the press.
Also, the casting is spot f***ing on, especially Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa as the scenery-chewing Shang Tsung, and Christopher Lambert as a surprisingly laid-back thunder god.
The fate of billions will depend upon you. Sorry.
In fact, the actors were so influential that they actually changed the course of the combatants that they were based on. For example, Kano was originally a Japanese American in the video games, but Trevor Goddard's sleazy performance was such a hit that they made him an Aussie in the games to match.
Did you miss me? Been a while.
Not long enough.
Similarly, Johnny Cage wasn't always Liu Kang's arrogant, belovable BFF, but after Lyndon Ashby crushed it with his cocky take on the character, the games basically turned him into the Miz.
He's basically Johnny Cage.
He is Johnny Cage. Yeah. The Miz is Johnny Cage. You heard it here 11th. Especially with the whole crotch punch thing he's got going. Remember, when the movie came out, there were only 2 Mortal Kombat games to base things on. So it's easier for me and the audience to accept weird changes like Scorpion and Sub-Zero being reduced to mindless henchmen, or Raiden being a wise mentor instead of a full-fledged combatant. But I will admit that it would have been cool to see Christopher Lambert just do a rocket-style move across the screen. Yeah. Seriously, I can't gush enough about this movie. It's the epitome of awesome 90s aggro cheese.
We got company.
And I just wish that game adaptations that followed it would have embraced the inherent corniness of their concepts instead of just trying to slick it up with the male gaze and Matrix-style moves. Honestly though, the movie does have one humongous flaw, but it's far from a fatality. The first Mortal Kombat game is actually pretty tame by today's standards, but when it first released in 1992, its gore sparked a nationwide moral panic and actual congressional hearings about violence in video games.
Cold-blooded murder is making Mortal Kombat the most popular video game in history. Kids relish their victory and their bloody choice. Should they pull out their opponent's heart? Or simply rip his head off just to see his spinal cord dangle in a pool of blood? How do you feel about cutting his head off?
The controversy subsided, as it always does, but the film suffered an unthinkable blow. The Mortal Kombat movie, based on the spine-ripping, heart-biting, head-exploding fighting game, would be given a PG-13 rating.
No! Rated PG-13.
Weak.
We never see any non-powered humans murdered directly on screen. The only deaths shown in detail are monsters like Scorpion and Goro, or magic users like Sub-Zero. I mean, honestly, the deaths in this movie are akin to an animated Disney movie. In fact, there's only one single drop of blood in the whole movie, when Shang Tsung gets a busted lip. Oh no! Honestly, there's not much separating the action in this movie from your average episode of Power Rangers, which makes sense considering there was a massive push to sell this ultra-violent franchise to children at the time. In light of the Mortal Kombat cartoon and touring stage show, we're lucky this movie is as dark as it is. And honestly, it's so entertaining that you barely notice the missing gore. Just pretend you're playing the censored SNES version of the game, or that you somehow forgot the Genesis blood code, because the PG-13 actually kind of paid off. Thousands of kids were able to walk out of the arcades and into the theater, skyrocketing Mortal Kombat to the #1 spot at the box office for 3 straight weeks, raking in over $200 million against an $18 million budget. It still holds up as a snapshot of a moment in time when games didn't take themselves so seriously and the movies could still be fun. Its sequel, on the other hand, pretty much destroyed all the goodwill from the first movie, within like the first 10 minutes, and killed what could have been an amazing franchise. Mortal Kombat Annihilation is a whole nother can of worms, and I'm sure we're gonna cover it on a future episode of Cutscene, but for now, I'm satisfied knowing that there's at least one game movie out there that got it absolutely right. Thanks for watching, everybody. I don't think it's too controversial to call Mortal Kombat the best game movie ever, but I'm curious if you guys can come up with one that's better. So leave a comment, try to convince me, and if you make a good case, maybe we'll do it next year on Cutscene. As always, please subscribe to NowThis Nerd, and if you find yourself in the pit, just look to La Luna.